Cheers, everyone. It's Damien, aka Sleepy Reader. I'm here with a book haul with a little bit of comics mixed in. Over the Thanksgiving week here in the United States, my family rented a place in Lincoln City on the Oregon coast for long walks on the beach and views of the ocean coming in while we had our turkey and sat around reading books and playing games. And in the city of Lincoln City, or town of Lincoln City really, is a fabulous used bookstore called Robert's. It's very humble looking on the outside, but it is super intense on the inside, and it feels like it goes on forever. I kind of focused on certain sections that are my habit to focus on, like the fiction section and the science fiction section. But eventually I started exploring areas that I'd never been to before. So this is going to be a pretty eclectic book haul. I would have liked to have gotten even more, but I probably went overboard. I'll show some books, then I'll take a break and show some of the comic book stuff, and then I'll go back to the book stuff. So that's how it'll be. The second half of the books, I think, will focus on science fiction. But as I was wandering through the back of the store, I hit this art book area, which was huge, and I would like to buy more art books. I felt like I was running out of time, like my family was losing patience with me. So I didn't dig through the art book section, but just sort of standing out in front was this book, which bills itself as a novel told in woodcuts. And I believe it's from 1924. So it kind of predates graphic novels, you might say, and not comic strips, of course, but comic books. And I'm not sure, this might be a person from Switzerland. I'll have to look into it more. I remember reading about an early graphic novel by someone from Switzerland, but I'm not really sure. This edition has a quote from Art Spiegelman, the author of Mouse, so it's not that old of a copy. But it comes in a box. And I don't know if there was originally more in the box, because this is a used book, and then there's just this book in the box. And it's a flip book. So on one side is his book, The Idea, told in 83 woodcuts. You might say these are novellas. I've just glanced at them so far. I want to sit down and really try to take in the story. It doesn't look as easy to follow the story as it might be in a modern comic book. A wordless modern comic book. So anyway, you flip it over, on the other side is the story without words. So we'll see. It looks fun. I'm not sure why I guess it's a woodcut thing. Woodcuts are never filling the whole page, but I'm not sure if they had to do it that way or if that's more artistically pleasing. So I was excited to find that. I haven't checked to see whether I paid a very good price or not. This was one of the more expensive, probably. I think there were some old science fiction magazines I paid more for. I paid $10 for this. A lot of the books I paid $3, $4 for. It's not the cheapest used bookstore in the world, but it's such a cool used bookstore, you want to spend a lot of money there anyway. Then I found this pretty modern chemistry book. So I'll have to go into that in some other video sometime. I read a lot of science books and articles and watch a lot of science documentaries with my daughter, who is fascinated especially by physics and astronomy. But she's taking chemistry now, so I thought it would be fun to have something chemistry related in popular science to read. And this one seems to give you little factoids from throughout the history of chemistry. So I thought that would be fun for us. Late at night, not late at night, but sometime before bedtime, we'll sit down in the living room and read a few pages of a science book or some science articles that have recently come out. So along the same realm, but maybe I'll just read this on my own. I don't know if my daughter is as interested as I am. We've heard a lot about quantum physics, and there's still aspects of it that are fuzzy in my brain. And this is a book that purports to explain quantum physics without any math. So I picked this up. Absolutely Small by Michael Thayer, PhD. So anyway, we'll see how that is. Does it have a quote from... No, it doesn't have quotes from people I've heard of. but people from Stanford and University of Chicago. And then again, in the science realm, there is The Evolution of Physics by Albert Einstein and Leopold Enfeld. And I listened to an autobiography, not a biography, not autobiography, of Albert Einstein that I enjoyed a lot. And there was quite a bit on what went behind making this book. Now I can't remember. Einstein had some special motivation for doing this book at this time. But I look forward to reading this. I've never read any Albert Einstein. It doesn't look like there's a lot of math in it either. Some graphs and stuff. So I've never read anything written by Albert Einstein before, even though I've heard so much about him in all our science and physics reading. We have a joke that every new experiment says, Albert Einstein was right. Oh, Albert Einstein proved right again. That kind of thing. Okay, veering away from science, but a science fiction writer, H.G. Wells, writing a non-science fiction book. This is oddly titled The King Who Was King. They had a whole bunch of, I think, original prints of H.G. Wells, of his less well-known or completely unknown books. He published a lot. This is from the 1920s. And its subtitle is The King Who Was King, an Unconventional Novel. And it almost looks like a nonfiction novel, or nonfiction book. The chapter titles are The Development of the Film, the art form of the future, the primary problem of treatment, the love interest, the antagonists. So I think it's kind of a postmodern-ish novel about the making of a film. But we'll see when I finally get around to reading it. Luckily, the print's not too small. The pages aren't too yellowed for something, what would that be, 100 years old, roughly. 1929, so almost 100 years old. And I was a big spender on this one. They charged me $12 for this old book. Okay, here's a separate thing. I've been obsessing. This was not from the bookstore. It came to me in the mail. I've been obsessing over Roger Zelazny recently from some YouTubers, and because of some YouTubers and some other things. And I wanted to see some more explanations of what's going on in Roger Zelazny's story. I just read Road Marks. More about that later, I guess, in another video. But so I got a couple on Kindle. There are a total of 3 nonfiction books that I can figure out exist about Roger Zelazny. I got 2 on Kindle, and this one was not available, and I got a used library copy through a seller on Amazon. Okay, let's do the comics now. I did not know that Gold Key Comics did digests also. I'm very familiar with Archie digests and DC digests, but I couldn't resist getting a Turok Son of Stone Gold Key digest. Gold Key being now a comic book company that doesn't exist, but a minor comic book, or it also was called Western Publishing, it says down there too. Apparently they were publishing Disney comics too. So that was fun. I haven't really looked inside of that one. Kind of exciting here, Son of Mad, published in 1959 or 1958, so it's 1959. And it's reprints of Mad comics from 52, 53, 54, 55, and 56, which I think would be during the period where they started out as a color comic for younger readers and switched over to being a black and white comic ostensibly for older readers. So I think some of this is reprinting in black and white some of those old color comics. I recognize that one, making fun of the Wild Ones. And some of it looks like it might be, whoops, I'm not finding it. Some of it looks like it might be more from the black and white magazine. So anyway, I don't have any Mad magazines this old before, so that's kind of exciting. And then it's weird because these digest magazines are hard to read with my old eyes, but I kind of love them. And here was one gathering together a bunch of DC Christmas stories, so I thought that would be fun. And then they had a ton of adventure comic. I guess Adventure Comics, which was a full-size comic, just switched over with the same numbering to a digest size. So it has a variety of comics. I assume all reprints, but I'm not sure. They had a ton of these, and I just picked out a couple that looked appealing to me. So this is number 496. And we've got a Supergirl and the Legion story, a Challenges of the Unknown story, a Spectre story, Sandman, Captain Marvel Jr., and Aquaman. And this one on the cover, this is $2.95. On the cover, we have the Legion and we have the Challengers of the Unknown. Inside, we have Sandman, Superboy, Shazam, Dr. Spectre, and Aquaman. So maybe that was kind of the regular lineup. And this is number 492. Yeah, it looks like the same lineup. Now, it looks like the Golden Age Sandman, so there's definitely going to be reprints in here. I'm just curious. I'll be curious to see if it's all reprints. Here's some more. Wait. No, I already showed those. I'm putting things in the wrong pile over here. Oh, and another Mad Magazine. This one from much more recently, a Mad Magazine collection, Spy versus Spy. It's kind of hoping to share the fun from 1974, or it was reprinting stuff then from before 74. Hoping to share the fun of Spy versus Spy with my daughter. Hoping she'll just pick this up and page through it. So it's a low effort comic because there's no words whatsoever. Although sometimes that's a little harder. And then I love to collect 3D comics, and I had no idea there was a Little Nemo in Slumberland 3D comic, and I was super excited about this because few comics have ever matched the visual bravura excitement of Little Nemo comics. And to see that in color in 3D would be awesome. But no, it was not to be. It's in black and white, and they either picked out the simplest looking visual stories, like there's no background there or anything, or did they actually take out a lot to do this? So this was a big disappointment. I tried reading it, and it's not. I still would have bought it, knowing it's not any good because I like collecting 3D comics. But no 3D comics are super easy to read, but this one is really hard on the eyes, even with obviously with wearing the 3D glasses. So when I tried taking my these glasses off and reading it just a little closer with the 3D glasses directly on my face, but that did not work out well either. And other times I've been at Roberts, I bought a few Tintins in French, so I couldn't resist buying a few more. Interesting cover. The back cover, so I haven't looked inside. The back cover of all the ones I looked at had this Modeste et Pompon, I guess. Ne suivez pas le guide. I should look inside while I'm filming. Get those. Tape. So I think all of these must have been someone in the United States who had a subscription, because they're all have and all the ones I bought there in previous years have this crease down the middle. So it was folded over and mailed, presumably over here to the United States. So my understanding is these magazines used to come out, I think monthly, or could it be weekly, and have just a little bit of a graphic novel, like 2 pages, 3 pages of a graphic novel, and then move on to another. So I had for quite a while been studying French on Duolingo, hoping to read some French comics. And the last few months I stopped, but I hope to go back to it. I have read a little bit of Tintin in French, and it wasn't too hard. So And it's just fun to see all these comics that never ever have made it over, to my knowledge, in English. So that one was, let's see, where is there a date on here? That one was number 4. Wow, pretty early on. And this one is number 10. I don't see a date. Oh well. They were also sold in Canada, 25 cents in Canada. So it's possible these came from Canada too. That could be another route to them coming to the US. Finally, in the comics, they had a bunch of Crazy Cat color paperbacks from Fantagraphics. Fantagraphics now publishes these in black and white. So I took my option to grab a color copy. And I think, again, it was around, it was $10. Seemed worth doing. I love Crazy Cat, at least to look at the art and to read. I think I like reading the dailies better than the Sundays. But anyway, so back to the science fiction. I love collecting ace doubles, but I have so many now I get worried I'll buy ones I don't already have. So I actually bought some of the more expensive ones, relatively, that they had, pretty sure that I didn't already have them. So this one has Andre Norton's Daybreak 2250 AD. Andre Norton being one of the early women writers writing under a man's name in science fiction. And Beyond Earth's Gates by Louis Paget and C.L. Moore. C.L. Moore, also an early woman science fiction writer, a very, very good one. And then the other ace double I got, I think these ace doubles have some kind of numbering on them. This is F117, and this is D69. So I don't know what the letters mean. Maybe it depends on what year they came out. Anyway, this one is got the Star Wasps by Robert Moore Williams. Love the covers on these. I don't think I'll ever read all of my ace doubles, although I do hope to read a lot of them. And Warlord of Car by Terry Carr. Warlord of Core by Terry Carr. Another really cool cover. Terry Carr later did not write very much fiction, but became a very famous editor, including an editor of the Ace Specials, which was the first publisher of Kim Stanley Robinson and of William Gibson. So very, very esteemed editor. While I'm on very old stuff, even older, I bought 3 copies of Astounding Fiction from the 1940s. And I was surprised, A, that they were in this good shape, fairly good shape, and B, that, I think I paid $10. Well, I paid a variety of prices for them, but anyway, I was willing to splurge. The sticker from Roberts on the plastic makes you not see the cover, so I'm taking the time to rip it off. This one has a cover for a Clifford Simak story. I assume it's part of his City series with the robots and dogs, Aesop. And so far, inside, my daughter and I have read the 1947 science articles in here, which gave my daughter a huge kick. They were actually talking about neutrinos and white dwarf stars, and that was kind of cool. And although there was some stuff about the white dwarf stars that my daughter said was incorrect, the understanding of those has changed. And then this next cover, I'm going to get the plastic sticker off it also. The next cover has, I assume, part of a serialization of an A.E. van Vogt, or however you pronounce his name. That's a very cool cover. The Players of Null A. I think that must be a sequel to another Null A story, I believe. I don't think Players was the first. Anyway, I love that cover. I look forward to digging into this deeper. By the way, the one that we have opened up and read It also has a serialization of an E. Doc Smith story inside there, and some other names that were familiar. And finally, these stickers really block the covers. Finally, this one from November 1948, which also has the Players of Null A. That's interesting. That's November. And what was this other one? October. So I should read them in order. I don't like this cover as much, but it was only $10, and so I grabbed it. Plus the covers aren't the whole thing. Yeah, so that really got me excited. Here's a book that I think I read as a kid, but I don't remember anything about it except for the Frank Frazetta cover. And it's always fun to collect things with cool Frank Frazetta covers on them. Anyway, so Cavan's World. Apparently there's another Cavan's story where they bring Cavan back from the dead. Cavan's kind of a weird name for a barbarian. A Lancer science fantasy original in the tradition of the immortal Conan. I don't know why they call Conan immortal. But clearly Conan was a big seller, so you put Conan's name on the cover of other things. Well, I look forward to reading this and seeing if anything about it pops back into my memory from my childhood. And on the Conan bandwagon, we've got In the Tradition of the Magnificent Conan by David Van Arn, Star Barbarian. And that's a pretty cool cover too. The colors aren't perfect, so you can't make out what's going on that well, but it's still somehow a cool cover. It has a Frazetta-ish look, but I don't think it's Frazetta. They almost never say who the artist is. No. Perhaps I could research that. So yeah, and I know I read a book by David Van Arn, but I don't think it was Star Barbarian. But it might have been a sequel to Star Barbarian. I'm not sure. Because my memory of it is it was about a guy on this planet who had a gun, had like a ray gun, and no one else on the planet had weapons or advanced weapons. And so he was like the top gun. But it was clearly a sequel to something else. And speaking of sequels, here is the very book cover of my first Roger Zelazny book when I was 13 or 14, from 1974, The Guns of Avalon. And I had no idea as a kid that this was anything other than a standalone novel, although it does say another swashbuckling fantasy voyage to the Kingdom of Amber. I didn't pick up on that as a kid. It didn't say book 2 anywhere. It didn't say there were more books coming. I just thought it was this cool story that started in the middle of things, and or kind of in the middle, and it pretty much had a complete ending, because I believe that Corwin. Well, that would be a spoiler, but anyway, love this cover. I think it's by Ken Barr. I remember figuring that out as a kid. That was the first time I knew Ken Barr's name. Maybe it says on the inside. So I'm delighted to get the same edition that I had as a kid. It's the first Avon printing. It was originally published by Doubleday, so it probably came out in hardback from Doubleday, and this would be the first paperback. Do they say Ken Barr? How do I know this is Ken Barr? Oh well, I must have learned it somewhere else. But Ken Barr was an artist I paid attention to, a painter of fantasy images that I liked as a kid. So I will probably reread this again, trying to read it as a standalone. More science fiction, or fantasy, really. Back from the day, this fantasy was not the major part of the science fiction section, but you would have a little bit of this Conan or Lord of the Rings stuff. So a Lancer science fantasy original, so they call it science fantasy. The Sorcerer's Skull. Lord Owen crosses the gates of hell to return the Sorcerer's Talisman to the place of its birth. By David Mason. Was that also that was the Cavan's World author. Yeah, so I got 2 David Mason books. I'm pretty sure I did not read The Sorcerer's Skull as a kid. I liked the sound of it, and these books were cheap, and I just want more. Okay, and as I said, I've been revisiting Roger Zelazny a lot. And there's this, I have not thought highly of his collaborations with other authors. So in the past, I never bought many of them. And he did, and I also have not in the past thought well of comedy fantasy novels. But he did a series with Robert Sheckley, who also was a major author, I believe, in the 50s and possibly 60s. And I don't know the order of them, but I got 2 out of the 3. A Farce to be Reckoned With, and If at Faust You Don't Succeed. And so I think all of this, Piers Anthony had huge success with his light comedy fantasies full of puns. So I'm guessing this is trying to be like that. So I was not at all excited that Roger Zelazny would lower himself to that. But now I kind of want to see everything he did and try to sort it out in my own head of what I think about it. And finally, I think because of all the talk of science with my daughter, I wanted something really hard science. And my understanding is Stephen Baxter is one of the hardest of hard science fiction writers. Maybe behind someone like Greg Egan, but still very, very hard science fiction, or maybe equal. I don't know. But this also is kind of space exploration type stuff in my ballpark. Alien artifacts were discovered, hatches that allowed humans to step across light years of space as if they were stepping into another room. And I love that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd give this a crack, even though it's a more modern, thick book. And I much prefer the old school, thin books. So that's my haul. I had a great time. I think I will have interspersed, or either put at the beginning and the end of this video, some shots of what that Robert's Bookstore is like. If you're ever in Lincoln City, Oregon, and you love books, you must go there.